In this video, we're going to explore how following our values and cutting out compulsions go hand in hand very well. There's two main components we're going to look at. The first one is doing valued actions instead of doing compulsions. This is pretty straightforward. What we're doing here is instead of spending our time on the things that are making us miserable, we're spending our time on the things that we actually care about, that create a richer and more meaningful life. When you feel that pull towards compulsions, it's very useful to have some valued actions lined up that you can practice instead. It's very useful that we're getting ahead of things, that in these moments we know which actions we can practice instead. And this might feel like you're suppressing problems or running away from your fears, but that's definitely not the case. If we're doing things to cope, so to make us feel better or to get rid of an anxious feeling, then it's a problem. But if we're living our lives, if we're doing the things we care about, it's never a problem. Whilst we do the things we care about, the thoughts and feelings can come along with us. We're not doing these things to cope. The goal is not to feel better or to get rid of anxiety. The goal is simply to do the things we care about. And the brain will make us feel like we're actively ignoring a huge problem, that we definitely need to go back, that we definitely need to do compulsions. Let the brain do its thing. You know what engaging with the brain has brought you. You're going to do things differently now. The second component I want to look at is using a specific value to cut out compulsions. This might sound very similar to the first one, but what we're doing here is we're setting a value around a pattern of compulsions that we want to cut out. So it's very important that we look at the pattern of behavior, the pattern of compulsions that we struggle with, and try to cut out compulsions across the board. Setting a specific value can really help here. Let me explain with an example in my own life. I really struggled with going back to the past. My brain always tried to pull me back to the past. It convinced me I had to apologize for something I did. It convinced me I wasn't really sure what I had just said. And maybe I said something weird or something offensive, so we should definitely check our memory of the conversation we just had. When things started getting quite extreme, my brain would convince me I had run someone over with my car, so I really needed to check my memory of the drive, whether I hadn't felt anything weird, seen anything weird. My brain always pulled me back to thoughts I experienced, so if I experienced some weird, uncomfortable thoughts, the brain really wanted me to do something about those. The brain always wanted to go back to the past. Basically, the brain wanted me to be a time-traveling janitor, cleaning up all kinds of stuff from the past. So I started committing to a value. I do not go back. Instead of being overwhelmed by all the different compulsions, I can see the pattern that's causing me a lot of trouble, and I can practice cutting out the compulsions across the board. It also makes me aware of how often I spend time in the past in my head. Even on very little things, my brain always wants to go back. It's something I've been practicing for a while, so it takes time to cut it out. But being aware that even these little things I do reinforce the bigger issues I was dealing with is so useful to recognize. Of course, just saying I do not go back didn't just magically make me stop doing it. I still had to put in the work, and it is very difficult work. So use all your mental health skills. Be unreasonable. Don't get into debates with the brain. The brain will throw up all its reasons why we have to go back to the past. You can still choose not to do it. Make things visible. So I have this value written down on my whiteboard, so I see it almost every day. And also build psychological flexibility. Accept the uncomfortable feelings, thoughts, and sensations that will come up as we start practicing cutting out these compulsions, committing to this value. Allow them to be there. And accepting is not about actively doing something, actively accepting it. It is actually about not doing anything about it. Acceptance is a non-doing. So practice letting these internal experiences be there instead of fighting them or checking on them.
To quickly recap, do valued actions instead of compulsions. It's gonna really help to have some valued actions lined up that you want to practice instead of the compulsions. And then set specific values that are gonna help you cut out a pattern of compulsions. This is gonna really help see how compulsions fuel each other instead of seeing them all as different and being overwhelmed by having to cut out all of these different compulsions.